Imagine on a Halloween night, the wind is howling through deserted streets, and there is an unnerving sense that someone or something is lurking nearby. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of leaves sends a chill down your spine. The air is thick with an eerie silence. In that moment, you realize Halloween is not just a night for costumes and candy. It's a night when true terror can come to life. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to dive deeper into 3 of the true Halloween horror stories of all time. Halloween has always been a night filled with mystery. Over the years, people have shared countless eerie stories, but only a few have left a chilling mark on those who hear them. These aren't just legends, these are true accounts that blur the line between reality and horror. Story 1, The Halloween Visitor. It was a cold Halloween night in 1992 when Olivia's family moved into the old farmhouse that lay on the outskirts of town. The place had been deserted for years, but with little money and no other option, they settled in. Olivia was only 12, and her parents attributed the eerie vibes to Halloween itself, a night that was meant for fear and trickery. That night, Olivia's parents drove out with her little brother, leaving Olivia home for the first time. She wasn't afraid. It was just a house. Halloween was just a holiday. Still, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a strange unease crept over her. She sat in the living room, a bowl of candy at her side, waiting for trick-or-treaters. Hours passed with no one coming to the door. The house was too far from the highway. Olivia grew restless. She tried to focus on the TV when suddenly there was a knock on the door. She gulped and sat back down, her heart pounding. There was a second knock. Olivia got up, expecting a trick-or-treater who had come late. Instead, she found herself facing a man, his face lost in the shadows. He was tall and dressed in dirty clothes. Breath clung to him in the night air. Trick or treat. His voice was low and slow. Olivia felt a sudden jolt of fear, but she tried to brush it off. Sorry, I think we're all out of candy. She lied, her voice barely stable. He didn't respond. He just stood there looking at her. Olivia was moving rapidly in her heart. She attempted to close the door, but he kept it open with his foot. "I know there's candy inside," he said, his voice growing increasingly menacing. Panicked, Olivia slammed the door shut as hard as she could and bolted the lock. She dashed to the window and peeked out through the curtains. The man was still standing there, watching the house. Minutes ticked by, Olivia glued to the window. The man didn't move. He just stood there. She ran to the phone to call her parents, but when she dialed, all she got was static. The old house had a landline. So far, their cell phones were still in the box in the back of the closet. Then a louder knock sounded through the house, as if this man had moved to the back door. Olivia grabbed a kitchen knife and froze in the middle of the room, not knowing what to do. Again, the knocks came, this time more forceful. Olivia heard the pacing footsteps around the edges, heavy and measured. Whoever this man was, he was not giving up. She climbed up the stairs to her room. She slammed the door shut behind her. She sank down next to the bed, the knife still pressed hard into her chest as she listened. The knocking had ceased, but the oppressive silence that followed was worse. Minutes turned to hours and Olivia hadn't moved. She hadn't heard him go. Eventually, she must have been too tired, because she slept, waking to the sound of her parents' voices downstairs, asking for her. Relieved, she flung open her bedroom door and ran downstairs. Her mother was sitting on the couch, but something was terribly wrong with her. She was staring at the front door. The door was wide open, but Olivia had bolted it shut. The untouched candy bowl from the night before was now empty, with its contents all over the porch. "Olivia," her father said, his voice shaking, "who came to the house last night?" She opened up to them completely. The man, the knocking, how he wouldn't leave. Her parents exchanged nervous glances. That's when her father walked over to the doorframe, pointing at the marks etched into the wood. 4 deep scratches, like someone had tried to claw its way inside. Olivia was scared and insisted that she hadn't opened the door since she slammed it shut. But her parents couldn't tell how the door had ended up wide open or why the scratches began appearing. Within weeks, the house was sold and Olivia's family moved away. And since that Halloween, every Halloween, she couldn't help but feel that something was still out there, waiting, lurking in shadows, just waiting for the door to be left open again. Story 2. The Halloween Curse of Dead Man's Hill. Each year, the small town of Braxton made the preparations for Halloween with decorations and haunted houses. There was one place that no one dared go: Black Hollow Road. Along that highway stood a wrecked mansion, and shadows surrounded it with stories of dark and evil rituals. According to these people, the house was under a curse, and on that night, Halloween, it became a gateway for something quite dreadful. It was Halloween, and they decided to prove everyone wrong. 4 best friends, Matt, Ashley, Doug, and Rachel, lost their way walking down the narrow Black Hollow Road, which got covered with a thick fog in the middle of the night. Their flashlights could hardly pierce through the mist as they approached the towering mansion looming before them. It looked even more menacing up close. Matt led the way through the doorway. His flashlight cast its beam on a staircase. It was musty inside, heavy with dust and the smell of mildew. As they stepped forward together into the house, it felt like there was something watching them. The creaking of the floor beneath them continued to resound throughout empty halls. They go downstairs, and here was the heart of the badness of the house. The stairs were steep and devoured all the light. The air grew chillier with every step down into the murk. Besides, only the faint scratching behind the walls. The basement was just old furniture and forgotten stuff. Ashley had been about to leave, though, when she stopped in her tracks. Her flashlight flickered wildly, and she pointed it in the direction of the far corner. There in the darkness stood a figure, its face twisted into an inhuman grin, hollow and black eyes staring. It didn't move. Panic. The group ran up the stairs, but as they were doing so, the figure started to move, sliding on an invisible current toward them silently. The walls began closing in, and the air thickened, making it hard to breathe. Doug had tripped and Matt bent down to assist him. He saw the figure standing behind them, bony fingers outstretched mere inches away. They tore up the stairs, but by the time they reached the main floor, the front door was gone. The house had moved on the hinges that held the door in place, leaving them locked inside. Every hall they went up brought them back to that same room, and this time the figure stood there, grinning at them with that awful smile. The walls began to bleed. Thick rivulets of dark, foul-smelling liquid ran down from the cracks. The figure edged closer. The house creaked, and a cold blast of air was blown through, extinguishing their flashlights. Rachel screamed but was cut off, like something had taken her voice. All the others went silent one by one, until there was only Matt left. He careened through the house, blindly making his way. He felt the cool touch of the walls. He was aware of the front door squeaking open in the distance, and it gave him the jolt of hope that he was running toward the sound. Just as he nears the threshold, however, the figure appears again. Its grin split its face as Matt crumpled to the floor in terror. He saw the figure bend over him and its cold breath against his neck. Darkness consumed him. The next day, searchers found Matt wandering up Black Hollow Road, confused and ghostly pale. He never spoke again, and the others were never found. The house on Black Hollow Road remains untouched to this day, and every Halloween night, folks say they can hear laughter ringing from within. Laughter intermixed with the sound of footsteps, as if something is still walking the halls. Story 3: A Haunting Beneath the Mask. It was a small town where everyone knew everyone. Halloween night had always been a happy time filled with costumed children, candy, and laughter down every street. But there was one house on the edge of town that stood in shadow, the old Jennings place. There was a history to the Jennings house. Decades before, on the Halloween night, the whole family had vanished. The neighbors remembered the eerie quietness haunting the house the following morning, their decorations still swaying in the cold wind, jack-o'-lanterns flickering out, and the front door ajar. Evidence of any struggle had never been found. However, the family was never seen again. Since then, on every Halloween evening, strange phenomena have been observed around the house. The years have passed, but the tale turned into local lore, and kids were afraid of it, and even grown-ups. Some even said that the Jennings family never really disappeared, that on each Halloween night, they returned. Tom was quite a dubious man in his mid-30s, not of the town, just moved there. He had heard all sorts of rumors. Still, he dismissed that as outrageous nonsense. He loved his peace and quiet, especially Halloween night when all the people avoided going out. Still, tonight was different. It was just past midnight, and at first he heard a knock on the door. He hesitated. He hadn't seen a single child all night. The knocking was louder and more insistent. When he finally opened the door, no one was there. He closed the door, shaking his head, thinking it was some sort of prank. But the knocking grew louder each time at different parts of the house windows, back door, even at the walls. He walked around the home, looking for the location from which the sound was coming. However, there was nothing. Each time he tried to look outside, there was nothing but empty silence. The hours passed, and the knocking stopped. As he sat down, his body twitching with exhaustion and feeling it slide onto the chair, he sensed it, a presence behind him. His blood ran cold as he felt that something was watching him. He slowly turned around, but his eyes landed on a dark figure standing at the end of the hall. Barely visible, he was standing perfectly still. His heart pounded. He blinked and it moved closer. Panic had overridden him, and his legs were numb. The darkness was approaching. It wasn't until it reached within a few feet of him that Tom could make out any details at all. It was a tall figure, faceless, its body wrapped in darkness, yet throbbing with a cold presence. It was then that Tom realized why the townspeople dreaded Halloween night. The shadow swayed over him, and with it he heard faint whispers, voices he could not identify, but knew came from beyond the grave. A scream went through his throat, but no sound escaped. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the figure was gone. It left Tom alone in the silent house, but he was not long alone. The presence lingered. Every night afterwards, so long as he remained in that house, he could feel it watching and waiting and growing stronger with each passing Halloween. And another soul was claimed by the old Jennings Place one who would never truly be able to leave. Every year on Halloween night, the knocking starts again, tempting another visitor to come and join them. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more creepy stories. Which of these stories gave you a chilling experience? Let us know. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the most scariest stories are the ones that are real.